On this episode of the Built by Anime podcast, we have the special guest, the anime debater, the power scaler, the bodybuilder, Hapi. So obviously we got to talk about how anime is motivating him in his bodybuilding journey. We talk about navigating hate online. And obviously the anime debating on TikTok and on YouTube, that's covered as well. And in my opinion, the most valuable part of this conversation is how anime helped him in his darkest moment of his life, trying to live and move forward after the death of his brother.
And so I do a lot of things in my life because it's like a memory or in honor to my older brother.
All of that and more on this chapter of the Built by Anime podcast. What's been up with you, bro? Like I feel like I'm aware of what's going on with you, but I have no idea at the same time. We used to live like in the same city. We don't anymore. What's been up with you, bro? How you been?
I've been really, really good. Like I said, the main thing that I've been just focusing on at the moment is actually prepping for my first bodybuilding competition. So I was going to compete this year in the ICN, which is like a natural competitors comp. And I still want to compete naturally, but in the IFBB. So that's like the same competition as, or the federation, in other words, as Arnold. Basically, they're people that are, it's a non-tested one. Therefore, I'll be like competing against people that are on all kinds of stuff, but naturally.
Right.
And so my coach, he already trains people for the Olympia, and many of them of which are natural competitors. And they actually win their different categories that they might be in, like physique or classic category for that. So I've been training for that. I haven't had a sick day. So I haven't missed a gym day for about a year and a half now. And I've been training mostly 6 days on, one rest day. And that's just because my coach he basically said from the start, if you want to be like an Olympia type athlete, you have to train like one. So yeah, just from the get-go, he's kind of just been pushing me. So that's why a lot of people have been saying like, oh, how did you go from like 140 kilograms to 100 kilograms in a year? Like, and then people have been accusing me of jumping on the gear or all kinds of performance enhancement stuff. But yeah, it was actually just because of consistent diet and consistent training, and like literally never had a single sick day. But yeah, that's pretty much what I've been doing. And at the moment, I'm still trying to get bigger and bigger, build more muscle for about another year, and then I'll compete.
Man, that's a lot of work. And I think that's too something that obviously we see it sometimes to a crazy extent as creators of people voicing their opinions about things that they may not really understand. But how does it feel as, you know, you working on yourself physically and going and putting in the hours in the hard work? How does it feel when you have people that are then accusing you of something that you know that you're not doing? Like, how does that even, how do you register that?
I think of it as a massive compliment. Like, maybe within like the first 4 months, people were like, how are you benching 3 plates? And you've only just started. Like, and then like, yeah, it's just honestly to do with consistency. And so that's where a lot of this dude's on the gear. Like, there's no way that he can be benching 315 within like a 4-month period of being in the gym. But the other thing is that if you're overweight or heavier, it's a lot easier to build muscle when you're fat. So I started lifting very heavy at the start because I was much bigger. Because like all the strong men tend to be quite overweight, like, but also a lot of muscle, because it's easier to build muscle when you're overweight, and that's why people do bulks and stuff like this. But if you're trying to compete in bodybuilding, obviously you're supposed to do like a clean bulk. But in my opinion, when people say like, oh yeah, he's on the gear or whatever, like it's kind of like a massive compliment in that I know the obvious truth, which is I'm not on anything and like don't know a thing about them. But it's cool to me that if you're just consistent and you're consistent with your diet and consistent with your sleep and your training, that you can see like crazy results to the point of where I'm like, I don't even recognize myself anymore, like in pictures, and or even like when I'm walking past the mirror, I'll be like, oh, that's me. I used to be like I'm used to seeing like this big fat guy walking past, right? But like, yeah, and now I've like even got comparisons between myself and like Arnold type thing. I'm like, wow, it's actually achievable, and you could do this naturally even. So for me, it's like, yeah, I don't really care too much about what those other people that don't understand the sport or what they're saying. I'm just more concerned on my own self-development. And for me, I'm not really trying to compete with anyone else. It's just like yesterday I was this, and like where I'm trying to get to tomorrow. So yeah, like as an example, when I first started in the gym, I couldn't even do a squat like with my own body weight. Like I had too much knee pain, back pain, everything pain, because I was just so overweight.
Right.
And then eventually, like each day, I had to put my hands on like the side rails to help me do a squat. That's how like unfit I was. And then progressively, yeah, like now I'm working up to about 4-plate squat on each side, which is like, I don't know, like 200 kilos. Well, getting close to that. Compared to before, I couldn't even do like just my body weight. So yeah, like it's about that progression from like, I guess, week to week. And that's why I like the sport, because you're not really trying to compete against anybody unless you're on stage. But I mean, like, 90% of the time when you're in the gym, you're just competing with yourself. So it's kind of like self-development, self-progress. And
for sure,
like I try not to really like get involved too much about the comments of people saying like, oh yeah, you're not doing it right, or that kind of thing, because yeah, obviously I just listen to what my coach says, because he's where I want to be, which is he competes, he trains people in the Olympia. So yeah, I guess like when people say those kind of things, it just means like, I don't know how to explain it. For some reason, people put like this giant gap, like it's impossible to do, but it's more so that they're just not willing to do the small things each day, like choose to eat this or choose to go like to the gym consistently. And then they can't believe that results happen when it's actually that simple. As long as you keep consistent, you'll see consistent results. Kind of like YouTube or TikTok or whatever. Like if you keep posting, you're just going to inevitably keep getting bigger and better. Like, and I guess like going back to the anime, like all those shonen are literally that, isn't it? Like they start from the beginning, like Naruto, he was like the dumb kid on the swing that got bullied and then eventually became like the Hokage, which is like the polar opposite. Like, and he learned Rasengan in 3 days, or something like that, like really quick, in comparison to Minato took 3 years, but he was the dumbest kid, you know, like, and all of those anime, that's the whole, was specifically shonen, have that story of like an MC who was like at the bottom and then kind of just like grinded away, and eventually, obviously people like to argue certain people didn't, they were just given talent, like Ichigo or something, but even Ichigo struggled in order to get to where he was eventually. But yeah, it's the same as I guess myself. Like I found it like as if you would, especially if you get into shonen, it'd be hard to not want to go work out or train if you've been consuming nothing but shonen anime. Like there's a lot of like 100%. Dragon Ball gym, like weightlifting scenes, or Bucky, or like even Vegeta's quotes are like some of the most inspirational gym speeches ever type thing. Like yeah, and
man.
so
I mean, how did you, so because all I knew you from was your like power scaling videos on TikTok, right? I saw you on TikTok, and I think I reached out to you initially that way because I really liked your stuff, and I was like, man, this dude knows what the hell he's talking about. You speak Japanese. I was like, this is sick. Like, so what was the transition? Like, what was the thing that you're like, I just want to get back? Because I remember you were saying before that you used to be an athlete when you were younger, yeah?
Yeah. So I was always sporty. When I lived in Japan, for example, as like the main mode of transport, you had to bike everywhere. So I was biking roughly 8 hours a day. So I never lost that muscle. Like I still have like really big quads. Like going straight into bodybuilding or the gym, I maxed out almost every leg exercise on every machine. Just from like my before like doing like gym type training, like just from living in Japan and biking every day, because there was a lot of like mountain, like climbing up mountains and stuff, like which is more like sprint training, you could say. So I developed like really big calves, really big quads, which was like an easy transition into bodybuilding, whereas most people really struggle to, it's also a genetics thing to build calves, and they also don't really enjoy leg day very much. but I found it was one of my favorite things because I just happened to excel at that based off all the sports prior that I played. So yeah, when I saw everyone else struggling with like any leg exercise, and then all of a sudden like me having never stepped into the gym can just like max all these different things, I was like, maybe I should like get into this and like actually try. And then I enjoyed it a lot and just kept going. And then I was like, well, I spend like a ridiculous amount of time in the gym. I may as well make this a thing and like get a proper coach and then try. And then yeah, and so that's kind of just how that all evolved. But yeah, I've always liked sports. My family has always been like really into sport. But when I went to university and then like was studying Japanese and law, obviously the weight packed on because I just didn't have time to train at all. And then COVID hit, so we weren't allowed to train at all. But then once like everything like after uni and I had all this time, then yeah, I just spent all the time doing what I want, which is like training and making anime content and yeah, like hanging out with friends and stuff. So inevitably it was always what I wanted to do. I just didn't have the time while going through uni.
Got it.
And that's where I watched a lot of anime because of uni.
So I had the pleasure. I'm calling it a pleasure because it was like a bucket list thing for me of going to Japan last year for the first time.
How good is it? Yeah.
It's the fucking greatest.
It is, hey.
It's the fucking greatest, dude. And I got lucky. Me and my partner got a chance to go to Osaka, Kyoto, and Tokyo. We were there for about 18 days total.
Beautiful.
And and for those that are in the States, that 2 weeks is kind of like your limit of vacation time from a job. And you may sound like 18 days is a lot in just in Tokyo. It's not. It's nowhere near.
There's just so much to do. Yeah,
there's so much stuff. It's like you just feel like because my uncle lives there.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, I didn't get to see him till like when we got to Tokyo because I wanted to go to Tokyo last. But
fair enough.
Being there, it was like this surreal thing because I didn't realize how much anime is culture there. Not like a subculture thing. It's not like a niche thing. It's like very
it's like the whole
prominent.
Country is involved. Yeah.
So you living there.
Yeah.
How was it like coming from? Could you come from Australia or New Zealand? Like where did you come from to go to Japan?
Technically America. So
okay.
Australia. We'll go back a bit. So high school ended, and then for my church that I attended, basically it's pretty common for people to serve like a 2-year mission. So I was called to the Kobe, Japan mission. So initially, you go to like America, Utah, and you basically get like a crash course of Japanese, and then you go to Japan, and then they get you to do things like volunteer service, like community service, teaching English for free. So you're basically just like kind of like a volunteer helper while over there. But then they also expect you to learn the language and then live amongst the people. And then like, yeah, so we ran like all kinds of sports, basketball, all this kind of stuff. So yeah, went to Utah and then went to Japan, lived in Japan for 2 years, and then came back, studied Japanese at university, and then been back several times after that. But as a tourist, as opposed to like a missionary, which was like a different thing. Like there was a lot of things you weren't allowed to as a missionary. But yeah, and then going back later, it wasn't actually until like I watched anime casually, like very casually, but it wasn't really, at least for, I think we had this conversation before, but in my kind of generation, it wasn't cool to like watch anime. Yeah. Like you get beaten up. So like it wasn't really till after Japan, because it was so normalized there, that like I didn't really care about talking about it that much anymore. And then also like I think the Western world kind of got into anime after like that Naruto phase, I guess. And then now, like for example, Jujutsu Kaisen and some other new gen are really big, like Mashal and all kinds of stuff, which is awesome, because that was not a thing. Like people did not watch anime. Like I think I only knew like 2 people in high school that cared or even knew that like anime existed. Like they just thought Dragon Ball was a cartoon type thing. and the culture was like very much play sports, like soccer, rugby. That's about it. Basketball. So yeah, if it wasn't for really living in Japan, and then once you learn the language, it like you learn a lot more about the culture, and there's a lot of cultural background insights and contextual jokes that people that watch in the Western language, or in other words English, or even just any other language other than Japanese, wouldn't really pick up on, because there's a lot of like Buddhist references, which is to like the religion and the culture intertwined with the stories. So there's a lot of like depth that people miss. Like if you didn't grow up in Japan, or learn some of the backstories, like a pretty simple example is a lot of One Piece is based off Japanese folk stories. So like I guess this is kind of like a spoiler warning in a way, but it's not like anything super new. But that whole Wano arc was already foreshadowed. If you had already seen the children's story of Momotaro, which is like the Peach Boy, that's a children's story about Momotaro going to Onigashima, and he defeats an ogre there. The same thing happens with Luffy. Luffy goes to Onigashima, which is Oni Island, and defeats Kaido. So if you had grown up with some of these children's stories from Japan, you would already know everything that happens in a lot of anime. Or you would know like, oh, that person's name, that's like an evil spirit in Japanese folk stories. So that person's going to be evil. But a lot of these like contextual things, they also changed in translation to English, just to appeal to the American audience better. And yeah, so like I found that I got into anime a lot more after having learned like the language, and then living with the people and studying the culture, and at university as well. There's a lot more to get out of it. Even like when I was living in Japan at first, because you don't really speak much English, like there's only so much you can do there. But once you start learning the language a little bit more, you can find little shops and cool things and like what the locals do. It's like a complete different experience than a tourist experience. Like living with Japanese people and getting involved in all the stuff, as opposed to just touristy, what everybody like, what they want you to see, as opposed to like the everyday life of hustle and bustle. And yeah, I think it's kind of cool. It's like experiencing a whole different world. And like I get why people say that like when they go to Japan, it's like living in an anime, I guess. Because all those anime literally just depict what the buildings of Japan look like. Like, oh yeah, I seen that in like that show, you know? I was like, man, that's what that sound is of the railway crossing, or like all the bugs and like all the sounds that they make in anime. It's actually Japan. Like that's just how it is.
Or the crows. There's so many crows. I was
there's a lot.
But it made sense, because I was trying to figure out, there's a lot of cats, but it was one of those things I'm like, why are so many animes have crows in them? Like, what is it about crows? And then we get there and there's tons of crows. Some of the biggest crows I've ever seen in my life.
And they don't differentiate them between raven and crow either. Like, this is the same word. Karasu is both raven and crow. So a lot of people get confused. Yeah, from like because it's just a language difference.
Got you. Yeah, because that was something I was actually talking to. Who was I talking to yesterday? Geekdom. I was talking to Geekdom 101. And we were talking about Japan, because obviously he's been there as well. And
cool.
We are having I literally said the same thing you just said, in terms of like the Westerners go there and are like, this feels like an anime. But in actuality, it's like what we do here when we shoot video, like when we shoot movies, we shoot in Chicago, Hollywood. LA, and it's just that's your backdrop, and it's like they're just referencing it. It's just different because they're drawing it as opposed to shooting there.
Like
so
all
strange.
the Shibuya references, like is probably the most famous.
And that was that in the Shibuya incident arc though was it was almost like they took a photo. It was so
they did a great job of making
detailed.
It look like it.
I was like, Shibuya 109 looks like it looks. That whole intersection was like.
But there's so many anime that reference Shibuya, and so it's like it's just so famous, like from even that now. Yep, and then like even Tokyo Drift. I'm not sure if that's totally true, but I remember them saying like it wasn't even legal, like the whole film that they did there, like of that drifting around the corner in the Shibuya, because like they didn't grant permission or whatever. So those people dodging the car actually dodged the car or something like that. I don't know.
What?
But yeah, so I don't know if that's true, but yeah, there's a lot of like really cool references to like Japan. Obviously, it's just a backdrop, but for us anime viewers, it's like you've entered that anime world, which is kind of cool. And then like in Akihabara, for example, they got that 7-story building or whatever with just full of anime stuff and toys and like models, and that was pretty cool. And they even have like a building just for Yu-Gi-Oh. I don't know if you went there, but like
I didn't.
Some of my friends that live in Tokyo, that's their like one hobby. Like they're like really passionate about one thing. Japanese people, they tend to be. Yeah. And his thing was literally every day he'll go to that tower and play Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Obviously they're all in Japanese, but like he just loved it. And like, yeah, it's such a simple hobby, but he liked it. And he would just hang out with like everybody playing Yu-Gi-Oh cards all day. And they have that, like they have like a favorite like Naruto or One Piece or Bleach or something, and they'll go hang out. And that's kind of cool that they do have places for that in Japan, whereas they do have them like throughout Australia and America, like I guess like you could say anime clubs and stuff, but
It's
all
growing.
those little, like, what do you call it? Like, not ComicCon, I forgot what it's called, Supernova and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely growing. I went to Oz Comic-Con here in Melbourne at the end of last year. And
how was that? I've never been.
It was cool. I had actually been to Comic-Con in San Diego, so
okay.
I knew it wasn't going to be on that level, obviously. Like, that's the mecca for Comic-Con, but
Cool.
it was cool. It was a cool little a little setup they had there, and they had some really cool booths and some merchant, some of the merch and stuff that was there was cool. But it's one thing like anime fans, comic book fans, like nerds and geeks all feel the same. Like it's like there's like a DNA element about us that just, it doesn't matter. Like you could walk in and look a particular way, and as soon as you start looking at things that you like in there, or properties you like, or IPs or whatever, you instantly turn into this like, oh, like it's
so cool.
It's so crazy. So I love that about it. But like,
true.
so like, okay, I saw something where you had dyed your hair green.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
What was that? What was the motivation for that?
So, yeah, what was the motivation? There was a lot of different ones. The main one I'd say was my wife said you should just dye your hair a random color, and then I decided to go with like green because like one of my favorite characters, I guess, is Zoro, mainly because he's loyal. I think that my favorite thing about Zoro is that he's loyal. Like. Obviously, there's a lot of other characters that are super loyal, Kisame, whatever you want to argue. But the thing with Zoro also, he's like super jacked, lifts a lot of heavy weights, basically fights people without any powers. But like if you're counting Haki, sure, but I mean like no devil fruit powers. He kind of just like works really hard to his one goal, which is to be like a swordsman, or the best one specifically, and yeah, that was one reason. But then also, like, I found it was kind of interesting how differently people treat you based on what you look like. And, like, it was kind of like an interesting perspective. Like, if you ever want to get, like, a lot of comments, people feel free to comment on people's hair. But imagine if I had, like, my intrusive thoughts and, like, gave comments about people being overweight or skinny. People are happy to comment on your hair, but not on like things that actually matter in terms of like health. Like my hair I can change, but like I thought it was interesting how I guess on certain aspects people are extremely judgmental, but then other people are like not judgmental in order to be polite when it matters. So it's like, I don't know. I just thought it was like an interesting experience to see what it would be like. Yeah, just having your hair dyed, which wasn't even like that crazy of a thing. And then once it grew back, it just, yeah, this is the same hair. It just grew back black and then cut it off. But yeah, and then it was kind of fun, like, because then like one thing that also kind of held me back from going into the gym a lot, or just in general, was like worrying about what other people thought. And then I came to realize, like, nobody actually cares, like, generally speaking, like, at all. Like, nobody cares what you think. Like, when I went to the gym and I was really fat, nobody cared. I would actually say I've had more hate comments after being, like, more jacked than being fat. Yeah. Like, when I was fat, people were much kinder to me. But then ever since, like, developing, like, a frame... people would comment being like, "Oh, put that away! Like you're just trying to show off, or like your muscles or something like that." Yeah. So like, it's kind of just been all this seeing what it's like how people react type of it, like a bit of a social experiment, you could say. But yeah, the reality is like a lot of the anxiety that people have is just in your own mind, and yeah, like honestly, nobody will really go out of their way to say anything hurtful. Even like I had something as crazy as dyeing my hair green. Like I don't really, nothing really comes to mind of like somebody saying like a hurtful negative thing, or at least something that was like hurtful to me. So like, yeah, I just thought it would be an interesting experience, and it just made me think like how much we limit ourselves on like not doing a thing just because we might be concerned about what others might think. Because I feel like a lot of content creators in general don't post just because they're worried about what people would consume. But like, we don't know what works, so you just kind of post everything and hope for the best. Is sort of what I've, in my experience, at least with YouTube. Like, you can look back and be like, oh yeah, these kind of there was a theme here. These ones did really well. Let's recreate that. But even still, like, I don't know. I just find that like not worrying too much about anything really, and just kind of like doing and working towards goals was a lot more. It's kind of like that argument for discipline versus motivation. Like you'll never be motivated to do anything really. Like you'll always like doubt yourself. But if you have discipline and you just do it anyways and just don't really care about what people think, that's when you actually start seeing results. And that's kind of like the whole thing there. And then also through my progress pictures, it kind of made it look like a big glow up from the green hair to now type things. Because I've consistently taken pictures since day one till now every week. So I've got like this evolution, but I just haven't posted it anywhere. But yeah, like it's for my own personal record. Like I said, I'm only competing with myself just to improve myself each day. And then like, yeah. So I've tracked like all the things I've eaten. I've weighed myself every day. Also, what do you call it? Track my lifts, how much I can lift over time, just to see that progression type thing. And that's where it all kind of stemmed from. Just have a bit of fun and just not really like concern yourself about what others think. Just do what I enjoy and focus on that.
I think something you had said that was actually like super heavy is that idea of people that they're so focused on other people's opinions about what it is that they think they may like or not like, and they decide to not do anything. That happens, I think, even still to more experienced creators, right? Like in the sense of you have built an audience, you're doing a particular type of content, and you're like, oh, I wanna create something else though, and you're like, but if I do it, are people gonna like it? Yeah, are people gonna like it? So like you almost go back into this fear of, I wonder if they'll like it. I wonder if this is something that I want to do. And I think sometimes the thing that you're doing is, and I used to do this in LA, where I hated going to the gym. Hated it. I still hate going to the gym. But I needed to get my physicality back. I had stopped dancing. I had retired from it. So, but nothing else changed. So my eating habits still stayed the same. So I'm like putting on weight, and I'm just not looking the way that I want to look. So I started waking up at 4 a.m. in the morning to go to the gym.
That's me now.
But it was because I needed to program myself to do something I didn't want to do. I had to like go to the extreme to say, okay, and that doesn't work for everybody, but I knew for me, I was like, I have to jump in the cold water. I just have to go.
100%.
So for me, doing that and then posting it every day on like Instagram to kind of have hold myself publicly accountable.
Yep, that's what I was doing too. Yeah,
and it was one of those things that it took me a minute to develop that level of, okay, I don't want to do this, but I have to do this. I need to continue to do this, because it's like, it's not really like you were talking about the motivation side of it. Like, there's days that you're not motivated.
Yeah, 100%.
So what do you do?
You just want to sleep in more.
You just sit there. You just sit all day, do nothing.
Yeah.
Like, so it's like you have to train yourself to be able to do the uncomfortable, and the things that you don't want to do, but the things you have to do.
Yeah.
So I loved that you utilizing even the green hair situation of viewing how you viewed it. It's such a strange thing, man. Like, I have another question about this.
Yeah.
I forgot who I asked this question to, but I think in your particular circumstance, I think you creating content and then also changing your physical appearance in front of hundreds, thousands of people. How do you feel about people online going at the comments, right? Saying whatever they say. But then in real life, to your point, nobody's saying this stuff to your face. Even if they may think it, they're never going to put themselves in a scenario confronting another human to make them feel a particular way. Right?
Yeah. I guess like with the different jobs and stuff that I'm involved with, I have like a lot of people that I socialize with on a daily basis, and almost like in real life, everybody is so proud of me. Like they're so positive, and they're like, oh, this guy, he's got like massive calves. Like they're constantly like like they're really proud of like all the little changes. Like, man, like I remember like 2 years ago or a year ago, I don't know, like people are so positive in real life, which is why like I don't really take it seriously when somebody posts on social media what they say, especially if it's like comments like "get a life." Like if I post about anime, all my gym followers will be like, "You need to touch grass," and then I post about gym, and then all the anime followers are like, "Stick to Naruto or anime or something." And then you post about like, I don't know, like a nice thing you did with your family, and then they'll be like, "Go back to gym or anime." So social media, you'll never win in a way. Like there's always going to be like somebody wanting that one. Or they've already boxed you in. They've already decided, like, this is you, and this is what I think of you, and you will never change. So I actually have people that come back, like, 2 years later, they finally see a video again, and they're like, I liked you when you were fat better. Or, like, you know, like... like those are some of the comments that they say all the time. I'm like, okay. But it's, like, really random. And like, but then at the same time, I had like a lot of hate comments saying like, "You're fat and you need to touch grass," just because I spoke about anime. So yeah, like this is why I don't take social media seriously, because I feel like if we were hanging out in real life, people would be a lot more chill and less aggressive. And there's actually a lot of studies and research to suggest that people on social media are like 80% more aggressive or something ridiculous like that. Like they would never say those things in real life. And it's interesting because like people towards strangers are more polite than they are to their own families and friends as well, like is what some of the things are. And that's what I find is like so bizarre. Like people are so fake online. But pretty much what I am online is the same as what you'd find in person as well. Like I'm one of those people that just post like random stuff of like green hair or like gym or just like, like I don't really try to edit it too much or think about things too much, depending on the topic. But like, I don't think like people's comments, especially as a creator, should impact your decisions, especially if it's like regarding your happiness. Like ultimately the reason why we post as content creators is like because you enjoy it, or it should be. Some people do it for a career as well, I guess. And so you kind of just do whatever to please your following or so. But like for me, it's just like I like anime. I like talking about it. I'm just gonna post this because I like this, and that's pretty much like what it's been for me. So it's not really like I don't really care. Like people know that if something's popular, I will still give my honest opinion, even if it's not a popular opinion. And I think that's kind of the niche that I've fallen into anyways. So yeah, like that's probably the main thing that I found. Like with self progression, you kind of have to be selfish in that way. Like if you listen to what everyone else says all the time, and if you took those comments to heart and seriously, like the negative ones, you wouldn't get anywhere. And so like I only just focus on the stuff that's actually going to push me towards my goals. Like people saying that you need to spend more time with your family or wife, or you need to spend more time making anime or gym. They don't know you and all of you, and like they don't know you. Like,
right?
If they're not there with you every day, they don't know how much you actually work. Like people that claim like, "Oh, get a real job." Like if you're a YouTuber, you don't have a real job, but like again, they don't know how much effort or work you put in, like doing that. Like, and it is a genuine job. Like I don't get why so many people hate on YouTubers for that, or but in my case, I still have like another job as well as like all the social media stuff, and then also doing the bodybuilding stuff, like,
right,
and then family and all that kind of thing. And so, I guess like with social media, people tend to box people in and think they're one dimensional, and they're already seeing like, okay, this guy's making anime content, he's a nerd. All right, this guy is doing this. So then they just box people in, and I think that's why people are so negative. It's the same as like political social media specifically. Like people are trying to like put people into this side or that side, and it's as simple as that. Whereas people aren't as one-dimensional or one-sided as you would think. Like most of the time, they're actually quite diverse in their opinions, thoughts, and unique. And that's the thing I think a lot of commenters don't understand, and that's usually the mindset that I have. I don't really, try to take any of those comments to heart, especially if they're negative. That's pretty much my take on that.
Yeah, I mean, in my head, I look at it a couple of ways. I do obviously agree with you in the sense of people are more angry online than they would be in real life, like in face-to-face interactions. I have a theory, though, that I think people are their real selves online. Like what they want to say to people, I think they say online because they feel safe to say it. But then they don't say it in front of people because they're afraid of the actual confrontation of a human. Or they don't want to hurt somebody's feelings and have the ramifications of, I just hurt this person's feelings and I can see that they're hurt because of what I said. I think people say things online because it's almost like paying with a credit card. There's no emotional attachment with tapping. But if I have to pull out cash and count and watch money leave my hand, there's more of an emotional attachment to it. I've earned this money. I see it. Now I'm losing money versus just, here, just pay with your phone, dude. Like, just, you don't even think about it. You just, So I think a lot of it may have to do with the fact that people are more disconnected from humans than we've ever been. So they feel like, oh, well, I can just say what I want here. And it's like they don't think that it may affect a person on the other side at all.
Well, it's because
again, that's just my theory on it.
Sorry, I was gonna add like I think also like you said in a way that they don't really that they're welcome. They like to be their true self because they don't really have any consequences that will be given to them. Whereas if they had like the same consequences that would be given in real life for the exact same actions online, then you'd see people pull their stuff together. Which is why you see on like TikTok, for example, they've forced everybody to stop swearing, like or they get them to stop saying the N-word or just a lot of different phrases that people would use on a daily basis. But on TikTok, they can't. Their content will all be banned. And so everybody has to change. The way that you can word things online, you can get away with. But in real life, it could have actual legal consequences. Especially with the amount of like misinformation that people spread. That in real life would lead to some sort of form of being sued. But in online, it's okay to just make like blatant lies about people. And for that reason, and then I know that there's like going to be no consequences. So there's a lot of online trolls too, which is actually why I noticed that a lot of people have a huge social anxiety regarding social media as opposed to in real life. Like, they would be more afraid of a text message that was negative and more upset about a comment from somebody than if they had have said it in real life.
Yeah.
So it's like a lot of people are extremely concerned about their online appearance and reputation, and as a consequence, they basically get more offended online as opposed to in real life or in person. And I think, like, because of the way that social media is designed, it's very short term, very like short term attention span type content. So when you comment, you only leave like 2 words, and it's a lot easier to say this is dumb than to engage in a dialogue with somebody. Because in real life, the other person would be like, why is it dumb? And then like you'd have a conversation. But online, there is no conversation. So it kind of just becomes this, no, you're dumb. And then it goes back and forth. And that's why, like, at least for like the power scaling community or YouTube or Discord, debaters were a thing, because you could actually learn a lot from each other about anime by going back and forth, like, who do you think wins? And I'd say about like 98% of those discussions were just like a back and forth of positive conversations. But off of platforms like Discord or YouTube, like TikTok as an example, they don't allow for this positive back and forth at all. Like, you don't get to hear the whole side. Like, even when you stitch somebody, you can only hear the first 5 seconds. So you don't actually get to hear their entire point. Whereas at least on YouTube, if you were to do like this kind of a podcast, you can hear both sides in their entirety. And like, even the way that we run politics in all countries, like at least Western democracy countries, you can hear both sides of the argument and people get their whole argument out. And so you can kind of see that people are a lot more reasonable, even on the left or the right. Whereas on some social media platforms, it's not like that. You don't ever hear both sides of the story. It's very one-sided. And that just is in every niche. Like, people will say like, oh yeah, this one person is on performance-enhancing drugs. And you never hear it from the actual person themselves. Unless if you went out of your way and researched. And that's the problem with apps like TikTok, is that they fuel those, I guess, one-sided type arguments so that people would be enraged. And then that's why you get all these like really enraged people, and people get a kick out of that. They like being triggered and just keep like getting triggered over everything. And so in a way, it's kind of like social media has made people hypersensitive to not real comments. Like, it's not actually going to affect their real life.
Yeah, I think too, like, there's something about, like, when you're talking about the anime stuff, there's something interesting about, it's like the people want to feel validated, right? So something that I've noticed in the reaction space, if I watch a particular show, like, say, for instance, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, I tried to watch all of it. I got to the very last season and I was trying, like, I'm talking about, it was like a chore. And I was like, guys, I can't finish it. They're like, you have like 10 more episodes. I'm like, I can't, dude. Like,
Did you watch it in Japanese or English? Out of curiosity.
In Japanese. Okay.
Yeah, cool.
And I just,
because that's the only reason why people. It was like
wasn't for me.
Yeah.
It just wasn't for me. And like, it was more so because people are like, oh, why aren't you liking it? I was like, because to me, it feels like, it just feels like a one-up story. And also, everybody is regular and a genius at the same time. Like, it's like they have this power all of a sudden, and then they're fighting this person, and they all of a sudden are physics experts. And they explain like, oh, well, I don't know if you knew this, but because of the wind density, blah, blah, my power does this. Like, yeah, but I knew that you were going to do that. So how I did this was, it's like, what the fuck? Like, it just wasn't, it didn't make sense to me. And I was like, look, this isn't for me. I was like, I'm glad that people like this. This isn't my thing. So, but people would be like, oh, you're an idiot, blah, blah. You don't get it. I was like, no, I get it. 100%. I was like, I get it. It's just not for me. Like, if you like this, dope.
Yeah.
So, and then it's on the other side of it. It's like, I'll like something. They're like, oh, well, you would like this basic blah, blah. And it's like, sure. Cool. Like, but it's one of those things I think that a lot of times people get upset when either they like you and they find out that you like something that they don't, or you don't like something that they like. Now it's like, oh, hold on, but I thought we were like the same. We were the same. Like, why are we not the same right now? It almost feels like they want to watch somebody that makes them feel validated about their decisions. And I wonder
it's attached to their identity, isn't it?
Right. Yeah.
And so when
That's
people
100%.
have like a particular box or an identity, like, okay, anime fans have to behave in this way, and I'm emotionally attached to that identity. And if you do something that's beyond that identity, I'm going to gatekeep it. And so that's why, for example, the younger generation, like Gen Z and beyond, are basically saying things like, you're too old to watch anime. And people are like, they're commenting on people in their 20s.
Right.
Like, and that's because their image of an anime fan is 14-year-olds, like from that are into Jujutsu Kaisen as an example. But they're emotionally attached to their identity. And so, yeah, like when you're out of that bubble or that in group, then all of a sudden they feel like betrayed and all that kind of stuff. And that's why they attempt to lash out at you or anyone. It's like, it's not even just in anime. That's in like all communities. Like, if you don't behave like a particular Christian or a particular religion, then they're going to lash out against the way that they think you should be acting. And so, yeah, like there's a lot to do with emotional attachment to your identity. And that's the other thing that's what I was going back to saying. People think it's like very black or white. Like people are just like this one thing. Like all Jujutsu Kaisen fans you're only a Jujutsu Kaisen fan if you say that Gojo defeats everybody in all of fiction. If you don't agree with that opinion, then you don't actually like Jujutsu Kaisen. That's an example. No, but it's not new. Like there was the Goku fans saying that
for sure,
and they were like, Goku, if you don't say Goku's like ain't nobody beating Goku, you don't love Goku. And then they also said the same thing with Itachi. Unless if you got the Manga Sharingan, you can't beat him. So Itachi fans are probably arguably one of the most toxic ever in history. But a lot of people weren't in the anime fandom for that period of time. But I was. And obviously, like, as each of these overhyped characters happen, it's the same trolls, the same overhypers that encourage this goon mentality, I guess. And it's not just like that. Then like Natsu as an example from Fairy Tail. This is a mad spoiler, but he just at like literally the like last episodes of the series becomes like ridiculously super powerful. And so people were like Natsu solos every verse. The same thing's happening with Boruto verse right now with Shibai. If you don't say Shibai beats Goku, then you don't love Boruto. Is some of the comments that people are saying.
By the way, I have to say this, and this may be a little controversial, but I think Boruto as a manga is fucking spectacular. I absolutely
like it. I've never said that it was bad. I've always enjoyed the manga. Like I was probably one of the first people to make Boruto manga related content on TikTok. And then I was doing the chapter review type thing, but then I saw that it wasn't like the best thing to get into, especially if you do it before the date that it's released. You get in mad trouble for that. So I try to avoid those reviews, and I kind of just eventually just talked about stuff that's already well and it truly happened many years ago type, like, you know. But yeah, like, Boruto manga is really cool. Like, I like everything they're doing with the time skip. I think it just like took a long time to kind of build up to it. I will say though, the anime is not that enjoyable. Like,
I agree.
Sitting through and watching each episode, like, it's not like the pacing of like for example, my wife, she is not an anime fan, and if I had to get her to watch Boruto, immediately stop watching it. Like she would not. But I managed to get her to watch Spy Family. She loves that because of the pacing and the way that it was written. She also, well, we haven't finished that, by the way. We only just started. Getting her to watch an anime was a mission and a half. Like, that's how different our like personality types are. Like, she's very social, loves to hang out with like the girls and all the kind of like, you know, watching romance and all that kind of stuff. Whereas I'm like shonen, gym, like fighting stuff. Like, so she didn't really get into Naruto, Bleach, One Piece, that kind of thing. She liked the live action, but and Hunter x Hunter. Hunter x Hunter was probably her favorite. But like, for those reasons, I was gonna say that the pacing of Boruto manga though is really great. I just don't think that your average person watches or reads the manga. They would prefer to watch the show, kind of like Jujutsu Kaisen, and that's where they get disappointed. Is that the anime is really letting the manga down. Like, I get what they were trying to do. Is they hated, like, a lot of mangaka were really complaining about how manga readers would leak what happens in the anime prior. So Boruto had this weird, like, we're going to make everything filler, but it's also canon. And it's not going to be in alignment with the manga. It's going to be like extra side episodes. And then as we release the manga canon episodes, basically it turned into Boruto being like 200 something episodes of just filler. And I actually think that was the worst decision they could have ever done. Like, if they had have just, like all the other manga, anime is going to be slightly behind, keeping solely to the... Because even Oda himself basically said One Piece was all filler. Like, the first 1,000 episodes, I'm going to redo the whole thing, and I'm going to make it shorter. Because, like, he ultimately didn't know where the story was going with One Piece. So he just wanted to remove all the parts where were basically filler. And that's where, like... I think when they basically made the decision to stop keeping it to just like the good parts of the story, that's actually been planned and thought out, and there's a lot of filler. I think that's where people, basically people think like Boruto anime is just like a whole bunch of yapping type thing.
I liked it at the beginning, and then I was like, and then me and my best friend started reading it, and I was like, yo, this is really good. And then now, like in Two Blue Vortex, I'm loving it. I'm actually really liking it a lot.
The pacing's really good in Two Blue.
Oh, it's fantastic. But this is the thing
very deep too.
Yeah, and this is the thing that I think you were talking about earlier with some of these people that are viewing these characters. Like, we love these characters, right? Like, people get really attached to them, especially if they're younger and they're growing up with this character. And they align with maybe aspiring to be like a particular character because of their personality type and all that stuff. And Naruto, I think, has so many variations of characters that people can align with. So they feel a particular way about that anime specifically, to where we get into Boruto and it's just a ton of people complaining like, oh, you nerfed this character and blah, blah. And, oh, like, I don't understand. This is so crazy what you did to this character. And I just never looked at it like that. I've never seen, like, I can understand if you don't like the choices that were made story-wise, but everything there seems to be explained why these characters can't...
like, I think one of the biggest things that Naruto could have done, like, but it's very Naruto-esque for people to die and then pass the torch. Like Jiraiya, as an example, passed away, and then there's multiple quotes like the next generation will take over, and that's a very Japanese culture thing too. We don't just live to be awesome; we live to also pass on what we know to the next generation. That's why it's called Boruto Next Generation initially, is because they're trying to maintain that that continuity, and that also goes with like there's a lot of Buddhist undertones in all of Naruto, in that life is based on like even all the Kages were summoned to save the world, to bring back Naruto. Like, as an example, like when you die, your ancestors also helped the next generation and all this kind of stuff. So that's what like Naruto is all about. Like, whereas they a a lot of people I think are like Avatar: The Last Airbender fans. So you kind of see Avatar, Avatar Aang in his peak, and then that's it, and then it moves on to the next one. So you don't really see them at their worst.
Right.
But I think that's also what makes like Naruto a little bit more unique like that. They always have like as they get older, they get weaker, and then they have like weakness. And then people don't like seeing, like as an example, a lot of people don't like seeing Ronnie Coleman and Arnold in the bodybuilding scene now because they're old and weak, and
because
they're like,
it shows their mortality.
Yeah, and like a lot of people hate on them, saying like they should have just stopped making content after their prime, so that way we can keep the legend alive and just remember. Like if you go through their comment sections, like Arnold now, where he's not as jacked, or if you look at Ronnie, he's like in a wheelchair. Like people are saying, like he should have just like left the bodybuilding scene.
It's so wild to me. That's so wild to me. Like it's weird, and that's the issue that I have with Naruto. With like
it's the same thing, exactly.
It's the same thing, and I'm like, guys, like they want Boruto, the character, to be Naruto, and it's like. In real life, that wouldn't happen. I was like, that's like saying like Michael Jordan's son was not Michael Jordan. Yeah. He just wasn't. Like, you know what I'm saying? LeBron James' son, Bronny, isn't like LeBron. Like,
but they do that even with Arnold. Like, they like compare the two sons, the one that went with Arnold, the other that went with the mom or whatever. And they're like, that's why Arnold's son looks like Arnold jacked, whereas the other one doesn't.
It's like,
and he's like overweight.
Guys, but it's like but
they have their own lives to live,
and that's the thing where it's like Naruto grew up with no parents. He grew up with no family. He was an outcast. You know what I'm saying? And he had to prove himself. He's the opposite. Naruto's like, well, I'm gonna be there for my kids. You know what I'm saying? I have a wife. My wife's here. My kids are here. He has a sibling. You know what I'm saying? Like his whole situation is different, which means he's not gonna have the same mindset that Naruto has. He's not gonna have the chip on the shoulder that Naruto has. His whole personality is gonna be different. And I think people never really attached to that. They didn't really grasp on like, and they still think that Naruto and Sasuke are like the two main characters. And it's like, guys, it's called Boruto. It's called Boruto. So
and I kind of accepted that. Like once, like you wouldn't watch Avatar Korra or whatever, expecting Aang's gonna come back.
Right.
Well, like he might, but I mean, like he's not the main character. Is the point? Like the point is gonna be it's mostly about Korra. And I think Boruto did a good job of that, of focusing mostly on Boruto. Except with the anime, there's a lot of... I think there was just so much side stuff. And then, I guess, in a way, though, they did, like, try to make Naruto have all these new powers. And that's where people got, like, a little bit of hope that Naruto's gonna continue and just get stronger and stronger. And I think it's also because a lot of the Naruto fandom were Goku fans. So, Goku's still going. Like, he just gets stronger every episode since 1986. He's just been getting stronger and stronger, and he's still going. And somehow he's still in his 30s or something. Like,
I have a theory that they're trying to make him officially stronger than Superman. I feel like I think that's where they're trying to go.
Well, that was the end goal. And then, well, believe it or not, that's actually the end goal for Naruto as well. Kishimoto initially said that he was inspired by Dragon Ball and Akira Toriyama a lot. And then Naruto, obviously, with his traditional outfit, was orange, and Sasuke was blue. So they were basing it off Vegeta and Goku.
Yeah, Goku. Yeah.
And Sasuke wouldn't have existed if it wasn't for Vegeta, because initially Naruto was just a demon fox in the the prototype of Naruto, and then they decided to make it a human with a fox inside the human. So that was a different change. And then they said, well, in order to actually make it more interesting, it's kind of boring. Like, imagine if you did a podcast by yourself. It's not that fun. So you need to have some sort of rival. So they chucked in Sasuke, and they basically ripped off Vegeta. So then he didn't want, like, obviously Shinobi aren't supposed to be in orange. They're supposed to be more in, like, black, like invisible. But he basically redefined like what a Shinobi is to just like an interplanetary, crazy, strong person. And they're doing like really, basically a lot of the attacks, like if you think of the Rasengan, it's basically like a key ball, like an energy ball. Like it's no different to Dragon Ball. And now they're doing like lasers and like they're getting there. And then you're getting people that are pulling out crazy powers like the Kami or Sutsuki, or the Sutsuki god. And even Ada, Daemon, all these people have like really crazy powers. So you can see that they do plan to bring in like the aliens, like Dragon Ball.
Right.
Yeah, and in Boruto, that's sort of like the momentum that they've had, and even from the beginning of Naruto, it was pretty obvious that they were going to eventually leave the Naruto planet.
Yeah.
Yeah, as opposed to like One Piece.
Exactly, where it's like we're pirates on a boat.
Yeah, and the whole plot is about finding something on that planet. Yeah,
correct. So all the stuff that you've seen a ton of anime. Obviously, you've been in Japan and things like that. Before we go, like, what character do you think embodies you, or somebody that you're like, you know what, this character is either something like that I look up to, or I aspire to be, or I just resonate with this character with what I've been through in my life. Like, who would that character or anime be?
I have a lot of characters. It's like picking your favorite child. But like, obviously they're all kind of similar because they're all shonen. I guess part of the reason why Sasuke was one of my favorite characters in Naruto, and this will be different for everybody because obviously based off your own experiences, you will be attached to a different character. But for me, what happened at the exact same time that Sasuke lost his older brother was my older brother passed away.
Ugh.
And it's just as bad. Like Jiraiya also, like the father figure, passed away. And at the same time, Fire Fist Ace also passed away. So like all these older brother figures passed away when my actual older brother passed away. So it's for that reason that One Piece is like always going to have a place in my heart. Naruto will always have a place in my heart. They didn't really have like an equivalent in Bleach, but I still love Bleach because that brother also loved Bleach and Dragon Ball. But because of that, and despite what each of those characters went through, having lost their older brother, that too gave me hope to continue. Like, it was a really hard time for me in that when my brother passed away, my parents couldn't cope. They weren't handling it, so they moved from Sydney to Queensland, different state. And part of the consequence of doing that while in your senior grades of high school is that you can't get pulled out of high school, otherwise you fail just from moving state. Basically, like it was the time there. So I would basically be giving up my senior school by moving from Sydney to Queensland just because of that time period.
Right.
So not only did I just lose my elder brother, who was like my best friend type figure, but we moved, so I had to leave behind all my friends, and also had to go into a situation where I would basically fail because of the system. So it was definitely a really tough time, and the thing that really motivated me was actually those anime characters, despite them losing their older siblings, still went on and became great and did great things. And so I still managed to get into law school and study a law degree. I also did a double degree eventually and then studied Japanese as well. And I actually chose to serve a mission because I knew that there's a lot of people out there who would be really sad and upset about like losing loved ones, but I knew that I could help them. And so me having gone through that experience, I felt like I could relate to people a little bit by being empathetic with them, because I not understand their situation perfectly, but a little bit better having gone through some of those really hard things. And it's for that reason that even now, like Sasuke is like his whole character development, he has a massive what's the word? Like, yeah, developing phase where now he's basically self-sacrificed himself for the future of Boruto.
Right.
And that was a cycle that started with Itachi. Itachi, we thought he was the bad guy, but the entire time he was actually acting like a good guy. And in many ways, I kind of felt it was very similar to the way my brother lived his life in a way. I didn't realize how much he did for me until he was gone.
Right.
And I'd say for that reason, it's probably been one of my biggest motivators. And one of the reasons why I still post and talk about anime is because he absolutely loved fighting shows and anime. And so I do a lot of things in my life because it's like a memory or in honor to my older brother. And anime is one of them. And it's always been like a big motivator. Like I know that he would want me to do better and just like push myself. And that's why like when I'm in the gym, I also think about like how proud he would be of me. And just like how Itachi would be for Sasuke and Sasuke of Boruto. And yeah, I'd say that's probably like Luffy. That's why I like have a bit of a soft spot for Luffy as well as Sasuke. And even Naruto with the whole Jiraiya bit. And Minato even. Look, Minato did a similar thing too. Like, yeah, self-sacrifice. And Naruto didn't really figure out what happened until much later. So, and yeah, that's why, yeah, all those shows, I think for me personally, have like a really profound impact on like never giving up as a consequence of those characters never did either. And they just became like amazing people. Like they weren't perfect. Sasuke wasn't perfect. Same as me. Like Sasuke literally tried to like destroy his whole village. I didn't try to do that, but I mean like I'm saying that he went from this horrible person to huge character development and basically became somebody who effectively saved the entire world and also future battles. Like, yeah, he was the shadow Hokage, so to speak. And so a lot of people give Sasuke a lot of hate for that. But if you were in Sasuke's shoes, I feel like I would have tried wiping out the village a long time ago if everybody tried to kill me. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. And I kind of felt like it was very relatable at the time. Like when, like my brother passed away, you often feel very alone. And that's how Sasuke often felt, was very alone. And then eventually it was Naruto, his friend, who managed to, you know, kind of make him have friends and stop being so self-centric and become what he became today. So, yeah, but that was just one example, but I have many favorite characters. But yeah, I would say that would be the main, like, emotionally attached one. But obviously I have a lot of gym inspirations, but that's a different conversation.
But what are your gym inspirations? I'm actually curious because like that motivation in the gym it's a different, you pull from a different place.
That's a completely different mindset. It's pulling from a different because this one was like that emotional attachment to, you know, seeing people change no matter like what they went through, like no matter what hell they went through, they still never gave up. That was just that, you know, never give up, I always have hope and believe that it can be better is kind of what I got from Sasuke, Luffy and their stories. But in terms of gym motivation, Mashal, believe it or not, like if anybody ever gets into dieting or bodybuilding in general, do you know how often I think of cream puffs or just like food? like people at my work, they like, you think about food way too much. And I was like, that's because all I can eat is chicken and rice right now. But all I want to be eating is all of these things. So like my Instagram or like whatever, I'll be scrolling and I'm just seeing cakes, cream puffs, like. So I feel like I relate to Mash like a lot because all he does is lift and then like just wants food. And like, it's not until like you start starving like on a regular basis, obviously in a calorie deficit. And like, obviously since I've dropped from 140 kilos to 100 kilos, that's like, I don't know, what, like a year and a bit of being in a calorie deficit, because you shouldn't really be losing more than 2 kilos a week. Otherwise, you're going to get like mad loose skin. Because the first time I lost 30 kilos, I did get loose skin. And that was because I went from America to Japan, lost 30 kilos just doing cardio, and that was bad. But this time around, I did it properly, and I don't have any like loose skin or stretch marks. And that's because I know what I know now. But yeah, Marshall, just as like, he basically just through hard work beats everything, despite everyone else being like gifted and talented. He has absolutely no gifts, no talents, and just through hard work alone. Yeah, and he just like every day trains, and every day gets better. And that if you just have that mindset of like, look, I'm not the best, but I'm just going to progressively see results. Like even if it's like a week at a time, any progress is still good progress, because if you're not moving forward, you're not going anywhere. And that's what a lot of people like just think, that it's okay, like, you know, oh, not today, I'm not going to go gym, I'm not going to go tomorrow. Whereas you got people like Rock Lee, Mike Guy, all of the Bucky characters, all of them, they have like insane discipline to the point where when everyone else would give up, they wouldn't. Like, especially when it comes to their physical goals. Like, people will say to me all the time, like, oh, I couldn't do that. I couldn't eat that food. And I was like, I know. That's why you don't have the results.
Yeah.
Because, like, it's literally...
And it's not being an ass. It's just being... You're understanding what it takes to actually do it.
Yeah, and it's hard. Yeah. And if you want to be like an Olympia-looking athlete, you have to train and eat and sleep like an Olympia athlete. And when people realize the reality of it, it's actually a mental thing. Like, because your body is an outward expression of your mind. Right. Effectively. Like, if you like can't control your diet, you're effectively going to look like what you eat and consume. Right. And the same is true with like what you train will also determine what your body will look like. And and it's as simple as that. Like, if you have that mindset, like, look, this is just normal. Like, for me, it's actually just normal to go to the gym at 3 and then make chicken and rice with some veggies, and you know, all those routines, they're just normal to me. Right. And then choosing not to eat those cakes and go to those, like, I go to the social events, but then I'll not drink alcohol as an example, because that's terrible for macros. And I have to do this full equation when I have to calculate how much alcohol was consumed, and I have to report that to my coach. And then just the effort of trying to calculate alcohol is enough of a deterrent to not drink. But when that's normal to you, it's not hard. And you often realize that, especially going to the gym, is that once you get started, it's easy. It's actually the thinking of the anxiety, or the thought of going to the gym is the hardest part, I think. Correct. And if you make it a habit, if you just do it, you don't have time to think about it. You don't have time to stress about it. You don't have time. Like, people will ask me like, oh, what are you going to train today? I'm like, I don't know. And then I get to the gym and I check my plan. I'm like, oh, this is what I'm up to. Because I don't actually think about it until I'm there, because it's a habit, as opposed to I don't try to pre-think about it, because then I'll stress myself out thinking, oh yeah, I've got to do like this really heavy squat, and then I've got to get through a full like working day, so maybe I won't go do the squat, as opposed to I'll just start doing my warm-up sets, get heavier. Oh, look, this is really light, let's keep going. You get excited, sort of. Once you start doing a thing, you feel really good about it, and you feel really great after the gym too. And and that's the same trope for, like, Vegeta. He's constantly saying, like, well, even All Might, like, go beyond, like, push past your limits, Kakarot or whatever, against Jiren. All of those motivational people, if you actually apply the stuff you see in anime shows, like, it's actually that simple. You just need to keep consistent and do it. And I'd say the biggest one for discipline was The Strongest Disciple. I don't know if you've ever seen that one.
I've heard of it.
It's this dude, like Kenichi, the Strongest Disciple. He's just like a really weak guy, gets bullied all the time. And then he meets all these masters of every martial arts. And they train him. Like, there's a Muay Thai one, there's a Kung Fu one, a karate guy. And they're all like the peak of their fields. And it was from that I started doing Muay Thai many years ago. And then, like, I liked
Wow.
Muay Thai, and I kept, like I never had the courage to go into like a Muay Thai gym, and without any friends, like I just went by myself, just started going to Muay Thai because I saw this guy named Apachai Hopachai from that particular anime, and he was just like jacked. And then yeah, I'd find it like incredibly difficult, especially if you consume a lot of shonen fighting anime.
Right.
Like especially when you see Might Guy, Rock Lee, that you wouldn't be inspired to physically just start training. Like the one thing you see about
Facts.
Rock Lee, he gets slammed and often just destroyed, but he doesn't give up, and he still gets back into the gym the next day. Even
Right.
Might, a guy, he's in a wheelchair and he's still working out. Like, and then you actually see these kind of people in real life too. Like there's people at my gym that are in a wheelchair working out and competing in bodybuilding competitions. and I'm like, this guy is literally more disabled than like everyone in the world,
Right.
and he has no excuses and is still going to the gym. So I feel like, yeah, when you surround yourself with that type of anime and all that kind of motivation and mindset, it's not just the gym, it applies to everything. Like getting through
For sure.
my university degrees. Like when I saw the Strongest Disciple and like, you know, different characters progressing and just being better, you genuinely, it's like you trick your brain into believing you can do anything and anything is possible as well.
Facts.
And that's how I've felt like I've learned a lot from anime in terms of motivation. It's probably one of the most motivational things. It kind of worked in backfire in that, like, all of a sudden my wife's like, I want to have a kid now because of Spy Family. I'm kidding. No, we do want to have kids, but I mean, like, the only reason why we don't want now is because we both want to compete first and then have kids.
Right.
Because otherwise we'll be too busy with bodybuilding and all that. But then we'll give that up when we have kids. So yeah. But yeah, like what I'm saying is it generally has like a lot of little principles and morals and stories behind them, enough to motivate you to want to just do stuff. And that's what I really love about anime. Is like, not to rag on Disney or anything, but some of those other cartoons and things just don't have the same motivational element that anime does.
Yeah.
Like, I find a lot of anime, like every time I hear like a Naruto opening, it brings back memories and I'm instantly motivated. Or like if I listen to Hunter x Hunter opening, even like I'll have in my gym playlist like a whole bunch of random anime songs, just because I'll remember Vegeta or I'll remember this person, and I'll be like, all right, this guy went for broke, he didn't give up, like it's time to just go heavy and then like lift ridiculous weight. And yeah, and then you're like, oh, it wasn't so bad after all. Like it was all just in my mind, and it is just like a mental game. And I think that's what anime is like really awesome about, is that it helps you to remove yourself from the reality of things and live in this fantasy world where anything's possible. And you get brainwashed into thinking like, what happens in anime can happen in real life. And then you do it in real life. Because like, yeah, like even in my life, I've seen like so many like miracles, you could say. Like me making it into university, that in itself, based off what I went through in my childhood, was like a miracle. And then living in Japan, learning another language, obtaining degrees, like being married happily 6 years and going on.
You got that main character energy, bro.
Well, but it's true. Like it was literally like, how can you not want to have that main character energy? Or like after watching all these shows and thinking that's not possible for me, when it would, like, from where they came from, they literally started from the bottom and then just went up. Like that's what like I got out of anime. And it's not just anime, like any story really. Like you can always take the good out of things, and that's what I've tried to do, especially with anime. And that's why it's always been like a nostalgic piece of motivational content. When I'm not feeling it or vibing, I'll go watch an anime and I'll feel way better after watching the next episode of Mashal or whatever is coming out. Anime just has like an amazing way of like motivating people to be better and help you forget about how difficult your life is, and then you'll be like, hang on, it's not so bad after all. I've totally got this. Like, it's not as bad as I really am making it out to be. If honestly, if like Vegeta can pull through that after seeing his wife get slapped, yeah, I can do anything type thing. Like, or like, yeah. And so yeah, like I said, sorry, I have many anime favorite. Like I have like so many. Like yeah, but.
Bro, I love it, bro. I really appreciate you, man, being here and sharing your stories and your experiences and obviously your anime influences. It means a lot, and you know, hopefully we can do more of this as well in the future. Is there anything that you want to share with the audience before we dip? Like anything that's coming up for you?
Man, I should have really thought about that. No, honestly, I'm just consistently trying to post things on YouTube, and yeah, just check it out. Other than that, yeah, I'm just really grateful for the time that we had chatting on anime and the podcast. I've enjoyed it, and yeah, I'll be down to do it again or to have more content. I think it was awesome. It's a really great idea, I think, and it's really helpful for people, especially to know that it's okay, normal to watch anime, no matter how old you are, really. I don't think it's exclusive to kids. I don't think it's exclusive to adults. I think anime, there's actually a lot to learn and gain from it, and can be very motivational. And then the last thing, I guess, it was like even the Olympias, like literally the peak of the peak, Chris Bumstead, he watches Jujutsu Kaisen and Bleach.
Oh, sick.
So like,
that's
like
so
even some of the most jacked people in the world are using it as motivation. I've seen like Eddie Hall, the strongest man. And it's actually quite like a theme. I've noticed that a lot of people that are really physically strong as well, like if that's something that you want to work on, anime might be the thing that might motivate you to go to the gym one day, because it did for me. So yeah, that's I think what I would like to leave.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you, brother, and we'll see you guys on the next one.
Awesome.